quietly pretending that this is recording. Hi everyone, hello if you're playing at home. All right, so I'm Richard Banks. For those who know me, sucked in. So I figured for something different we'd do a talk about App Insights. Who's used this, by the way? Anyone? Who's heard of it? Okay, who's a New Relic user? Who's a Splunk user? A Loggly? A build your own logging system using Serilog and everything else? Who just does like debug.writeline? Who's still a PHP developer? If that's you, you've just put your hand, stop it. You just put your hand down, man. You got you can't say yes to all of them, but I thank you for your involvement. All right, so App Insights is Microsoft's analytical tool for basically doing tracing and monitoring whatever's happening in an application, and then getting intelligence around that. Intelligence, a loose term because you've got to come up with it, but they give you the tools, and then from there you can figure out what's happening in an application and use that to see, how's things performing in production, where are my problems, doing that whole ops part of the DevOps cycle. So for those who are, the usual DevOps cycle, right? Dev codes things, ops put it in production, ops swear at it because the thing's running like a dog, and the dev goes, works on my machine. Yeah. Who's done that?
Never.
Come on, own up. You're all liars. Oh, you've never had your code go to production. People know better. All right, so I was going to put together a whole lot of slides, but that would require time. And at the end of the day, you're not interested in slides, right? Nah. I was going to put the slide deck together that said, "Hi, I'm Richard." And then that was going to have the end slide after that with demo in the middle, so I just deleted the slides. So what I've got here is the Azure portal. Very exciting. You've seen it before? Maybe? Okay, good. I went ahead earlier and created an App Insights resource, which is basically just a dumping ground. The way it works is you take instrumentation from your application, it gets bundled locally into chunks and then pushed across to the App Insights service over HTTP, and then gets picked up at the other end and turned into useful data with visualizations and all sorts of things. So I'm going to kick, this is it, just jumping in here. You can see I've got a bunch of stuff here. I'll run through some of these earlier. There's last night's work, because I prepared. Here's one I prepared earlier. I have no live streams at the moment. I have no insights, automatic insights. I just have no insight. You see, no one's biting. They're just letting me get away with this stuff, which is great. You're all being far too nice. And Jason's tweeting rude things about me, which is only fair, really. So I'm going to run an application. This is this application here is a sample app from a project called CQRS Lite, which I use for showing various things. And I've just gone through and I've added instrumentation into it. So as I do stuff, behind the scenes, let's go page, there we go, good. Behind the scenes, I'm doing things, so I might check in. This is just like simple inventory type stuff. So I check in 12 of them. And then I go and I remove 3 from stock. And then I might go and rename an item to something more creative, like an item. It's great, isn't it? And I might add another one. And as I'm doing all this, App Insights behind the scenes is already capturing my page information. And every time I do an action in the user interface, it's tracking an operation ID, and all the instrumentation then gets attached to that operation ID. So I can basically see what's happening in my back end related to user input on the front end, which is it's kind of useful, if you want to track what's happening. And I might remove something, that's cool. And I might even do something, let's see, remove one item, which is cool. So I now have a count of -1. So I'm going to make it even better. I'm going to check in -5 items. So I'm adding -5 to stock. And of course, there's business rules in my app which are going to go, what you talking about, man? Throw an exception. You're a monkey. get the yellow screen of death. You're an embarrassment to life. How can you live with yourself? Yeah, it's pretty normal, right? So while this is going, while this app's actually running, if I go back to here and jump back over to Insights for a second, you can see this has lit up. This little thing here, live stream. I'm going to hit that and it's going to tell me what's actually happening on my box. So when there's a connection established between the application that's running and App Insights, when it's live, you get live stream data. So you can actually just sit there and use this as a bit of a dashboard to see what's going on. I should probably do something so there's some data, hey. So let's go in here, go to an item, and check in 5 items here, submit, take this one, remove it. Boom, yay, we got an error, that's good. Remove 3, submit, whatever, and deactivate it completely, whatever else. As that's happening, you can see now I've got data coming through. I'll just zoom that up for you. Woo, yay, magnifier. And as you're using things, the little line there is just so I can see where the position is across all of the different charts. So I can see what's going on. So here's my request per second. I can type fast and get a whole 2 requests per second. It's pretty good. I can see response times. Some of these are a bit slow, but yeah, not too bad. I've got my dependency calls. So I've hooked up a dependency internally in the application where I'm making a call from the service to something else and then coming back. So I see information like that, how long those dependencies are taking. So I know if it's my code or if it's the dependency that's slowing me down, for example. Kind of useful information at times. Other things like, memory footprint and CPU, that's actually CPU on my box, like physical machine here, laptop. The server that's running the app. So in that case, my laptop is the server. So that's live data from there. That CPU data is probably up a little bit because I've got the screen recorder going at the same time and all that sort of thing. Any exceptions per second if they're coming through, dependencies, whatever else. So it's cool, it's good information. And I can see the laptop name itself down here. So if I had multiple servers, we could see all the different servers that were hooked up and talking. If we were in a cluster or a farm or something like that, we'd be able to see all of those things. So for live stream data, sweet, kind of cool. And it's a nice way just to get that easy dashboard of what's happening in my life. Other things though, if I just go here and hit refresh, I should get a blip of data. There we go. So you can see we're starting to get some data coming here as well for various things. But this one's probably more interesting to start off with. Depending on the source of the analytics, trace information that's coming through, App Insights can build you an app map. So have you anyone seen some of those blogs that do tracing across what apps are where and how many calls are happening and all that sort of thing? Like a Netflix blog where they talk about microservices and they have this thing and there's boxes everywhere and lines all over the place. Where are the calls going? Where are the dependencies basically? This is that. Different visualization, different look and feel, but it's that concept, right? What's the map in my application? Now, this app, it's not really 3 things like that. I've faked one of the dependencies by putting in some tracing information. So I have a logical dependency. It's deployed as a single thing. And so we can see, if I just zoom that up for you a bit more, CQRS Insights, I've had 72 page views, averaging whatever it happens to be. It's making calls across to Insights, which is making calls across to a persistence dependency, which is having some problems. Oh, that's a bit sad, really. It's kind of my fault. I broke it, but that's what's happening. Yeah.
Is this web server, web app centric?
Application.
Your example is that?
Yeah. The example is a web one because that's what most people are doing. It's much easier to do. You can get it off mobile, no problem at all. It basically can put it off anything that you want to instrument. So if you want to do it off desktop, for instance, no problem. If you want to do it off a WinForms app or something like that, because you're you like that sort of thing and you've still got XP in your office, you could do that. Effectively there's a few different APIs. So there's some C# code you can do, Java is supported, there's an SDK for that, JavaScript is fine as well, or you can simply just call REST endpoints and push data into it. So it's up to you.
So if you
Yep.
have like the microservices architecture,
Yep.
could you have all the different services like in this one application map, or is it?
Yep. I don't know how many you can get before it goes, I don't like drawing anymore.
Yeah.
I haven't actually pushed it that hard, but there's only one way to find out, right?
Do you know what the story is with the client-side insights?
This one here,
Yeah, so is that,
that's a JavaScript
you get a
library.
bunch of that for free and then you customize it for your app, or it's all custom?
Show you. Great question. I'm glad you asked. Thank you for prompting me. All right. So that's the app map. Wrong scroll bar. There's only 48 of them because Azure Portal. All right. So in the getting started down here, it's got information in there. What I really want is probably the properties actually. Where am I? I can never remember where it is. There's an instrumentation key. All right. So that puppy there, that's the key that all the insight data has to go to. So all my tracing information is tagged with that key. The SDK does all that for me automatically if I'm using the SDK, whether it's JavaScript or whatever else. If I use the REST API, I have to include that. And then that's going to be what gets picked up by the ingestion engine and pushes it into my account. So App Insights runs this massive ingestion engine. It's effectively like an IoT hub. Just all sorts of stuff going in, conceptually.
Top tip.
Sorry?
Top tip. If you're trying to instrument, put some analytics behind, say, 10 different services, use the same instrument. Because if you don't, then you can't track anything.
Correct.
Services, and
Yeah.
people do it all the time.
Yeah, because it's an instrumentation key for a logical application. However you decompose it, it's the application you're instrumenting. So if you treat all your services as different applications, they're different applications.
Does it have any concept of a correlation key?
Does it have concepts of correlation IDs and all that sort of stuff? Absolutely. You can stick your own metadata in there as well. Not a problem at all.
And you can trace a call, like individual calls down to a stack with a correlation ID saying so it's the same app, but this call is correlated to.
Yep. Yep.
You can even do that across JavaScript and then C#.
Yes. I was going to show something and then it fell out of my head, which is great because, you know, attention span. All right, JavaScript. Let me just show you that very quickly since that's what the question was, and we'll go completely off tangent. I have Solution Explorer. Let's do this. I've got a page here which I've just gone and written sample/default.html, which is the best site ever. All right. It's great. It's going to give me an alert. Wow. Beautiful. But that's actually done some stuff at the back end. It's just instrumented the before and after the alert call and pushed things through. So once that flushes through, App Insights will have that. It will come up in my I don't want that one. Do I want that one? Let's get page views. All right, so I should get static page. There we go. That's my static page that I just instrumented. And I'm just waiting to see if that's come through yet. Not quite. It's still thinking. No. All right. I did it last night anyway. So I've instrumented that page just with my own stuff. I use the JavaScript SDK, and if I click one of these, it will end up showing me a blade with other information about it, with all the events that have happened on that page. with the operation ID, which is the main thing that it actually tracks, I'd be able to see other things about that, such as all telemetry for this operation, which is down the bottom there, which is then going to show me all sorts of wonderful, exciting things. Let me zoom that a bit more. All right, is that okay? Kind of. So you can see I've given it an operation name, a dependency, a timing, duration, the call was successful. I've got my custom events that I've added. Pre the JavaScript alert, post the JavaScript alert, whatever these events are can be up to you. So I've done some extra customization on here, but it's also given me default stuff just as I've hit this page, I'm just getting things. No big deal at all. So I'm seeing information about it. It's turning up. I can track that stuff. What it looks like from a code perspective is pretty simple. Here it is here. All right, so there's a little bit of JavaScript you include. We include it at the start because we want to instrument the page loading, including the loading of other JavaScript scripts in there. If we want to really focus on front-end performance, for example, how long page loads are happening, what's the average time for users across the globe in terms of how long their load times take, do we need to start using CDNs, which CDNs are slow for us, all those sort of things that we might be interested in. So we instrument first. You can see I've got the instrumentation key jammed in there. And beyond that, I simply go track the page view, and you can see I use static page and gave it a URL, and I just made stuff up. As you can see, it's a great URL. But this is the sort of thing you can do, right? This is out of the box stuff. If I leave it blank, it's just going to do, it's going to pick up a whole lot of default information for me. When you do and here's the actual clicky down here. So when I do the on-click function for my clicky, I'm just doing app insights track event. And again, I'm putting in the pre-alert, and I've stuck in some custom data as well, just for fun, some string and numeric data. And that reflects back into here. So if I go to that custom event, which one was it? Pre-alert. So it's going to show me details about that particular event in just a second. Make that a little bit longer than a second. And there's my custom data. So if I was wanting to know specific things about whatever's going on in the UI, and I'm really interested in that stuff, then I can track that information. It's extra tracing stuff that goes to the back end. That's for custom straight up JavaScript. If I'm doing a normal, say, MVC page or something like that, which is loaded up normally, I might end up with something a little different. Let me just see if I can find something useful. The home page, for example, here. So there's a bunch of things. There's my extra hits coming in now. The different page views. I'll pick one in a second. This one here will do. And off this, we will get something very soon. So there's my thing, there's the browser I was using, where I was, what my IP address is, etc., etc. What are the similar views, related server requests. So I might go, oh, what's happening off this? 25? Interesting. What are all those 25 requests? When are they happening, etc. Or I can go telemetry for that specific operation. So that particular page load, when I was doing stuff on it, I had some AJAX calls happening because I'm running in debug. I get the infamous, browser link requests and all that sort of stuff from VS. So those were coming through, and then there's the page view itself, and then I'm kind of going around in circles at that point. But that's okay. So I'm able to start digging through some of this as well, which is cool. At this point, there's more I can do. I've got other things that I've done. So if I jump into the C# code just to show you other ways of looking at it, I've got a command handler here. I've created a telemetry client, which is in global ASAX. So at startup, wherever it is. Telemetry, I'll find it somewhere. I'm blind, aren't I? Yes, I am. Wherever my telemetry client is, it's registered in one of the pages somewhere. I inject it here just using the standard IOC stuff, and you can see it's kind of that same thing. I'm tracking an event, so telemetry, if it's not null, because I might not be running telemetry, I don't want to crash, right? So if it's not null, I'm going to track the event. In this case, receive an inventory command. I've finished processing. I can see where things are happening, or I might be doing trace information. So there's all sorts of different ways of using the API. It's up to you what you're interested in. Do you want to track events, things that happen? Do you want to track pre and post things, dependencies, trace information, etc.? I want to put that into things. So the dependency one I was mucking around with before, you can see here I started a timer, stopwatch, start new. I do things, and then at the end I'm saying track that dependency. I'm calling it persistence. The operation was check in, and here's my start time, the elapsed time, and success flag. And that's then getting pushed up to the cloud as here's a dependency we did. This is how long we had to wait for the dependency, so on and so forth. So that's where I can start building up that app map as well. So this is all kind of useful. I could go a lot deeper than this, but what I wanted to do, probably just given the time, is jump across to one of the other cool parts of this whole App Insights stuff, which is the actual insights part. So if I go, I am so lost without the zoom. Come back out, zoom. All right. And now I've zoomed out too far because it's the best. All right. Overview here, you'll see there's just here, analytics. Okay, so all this data is maintained no matter how much you're throwing at it. Just in case you're not sure, hold on because authentication's in progress. All this data gets kept online for 90 days by default. If you want to keep the insight data for longer, you can pay for a enterprise version, basically stream that data down to your own storage area. Can be in the cloud as well, but the actual insight service, it just stays there for 90 days. And this here is built on top of a tool Microsoft has called Kusto, which is a querying tool across huge amounts of data, petabyte type queries that we're talking about. So I might be interested in doing something in here such as playing around with custom events. Now the way this works is you take a table and you pipe it into an operation which produces a table. You then pipe into an operation that produces the table. You then pipe into another operation that produces a table. So it kind of looks a bit weird initially, but it's SQL-ish. So if I go custom events table to start off with, I want to pipe that into, say, where timestamp is greater than ago 30 minutes. Fair enough? And then, over here somewhere, I'm going to hit go, and it's going to go, hang on, I'll grab your data, and it's going to go, oh look, there you go. There's some stuff that happened. Because my zoom factor is so awesome, I might just step out just a little bit. There we go, there's a few other things that are happening, which is cool. That's okay, that's a start. I then might go, let's actually do summarize. The minimum timestamp and the maximum timestamp, because I want to see how long operations took from the UI across multiple events, for example. By operation ID. So remember, all the operations from the front end are tagged by default with an op ID. I want to see when the first and last event happened across all my services. So if I want to know how long it took, for example, in say a microservices thing for a UI interaction to flow all the way through all my services and finally be processed, I could do it this way. I just make sure I keep that operation ID as a tag across everything, and then I'm good to go. So I could run that again, and now my table is going to look slightly different. Now it's going to say, look, there's my min and max timestamps for that particular operation ID. I could expand that out, see more information. I could then, if I wanted, go look that operation ID up either back in the other view or by putting more queries in. I could do something like, well, actually that doesn't really tell me how long it took, it just tells me the start. So what I do is I extend my table, which seems a bit weird, right? But effectively what I'm doing is I'm taking my table, piping it into an operation that adds a new column on the end of it. So I'm going to extend it by adding a column called duration, great name, Richard, equaling, what is that? Max timestamp, whoops, timestamp minus min, minus, gosh, yes, super awesome typing, which is cool. So now you'll see there's my durations. And obviously I can hit that and order it by and all that sort of thing. And I can see this, whatever PF0G95XPQM random letters, whatever that op ID was. I could trace that and see what it's going through, what path it's executing on, and go, interesting. And then not fix any of my bugs. Because, you know, they want new features instead. But I can also do other things. I might join this to requests. So those are the requests that are coming from. And the request table, I actually don't want to join on everything from the request table. I just want some features or some fields. So I'm going to pipe the request table. So I've started an inner table effectively. And I'm just going to take a projection of the data. So project, operation ID and URL, for example. On operation ID. So I'm joining on the operation ID. That's why I need to have it in here, but I'm really just interested in the URL this came from, which is cool. And then I do that. And no query was selected because I've got a blank line at the end. It's a little bit funny sometimes. And it's going to say, any second now. Going to say that the time's ticking by,
Demo words.
and then while it's doing stuff, I'm just going to add an order by, just for fun, duration. There we go. So I can see which URLs. The add page seems to be the slowest part of my system at the moment. Is it? Wait, oh, I can't tell. I need to order it properly. So I'm going to order by duration. And then make that descending. And if I wanted, I could say, where do I want nulls? I don't really care. Let's put them last. All right, so hopefully this will be a bit quicker. Cool. So my slowest operation so far was, the home page, adding things twice. That guy down there is my slowest operation. Now I could see that from the UI as well, but I just wanted to show you how you can query across these things and play with this stuff. And on first glance, this analytics querying tool seems a bit like, oh, it's really kind of weird, another language to learn, but it's actually pretty simple to get your head around. And then you can play around with all sorts of things and ask the questions that you're not going to get out of the box with just a straight visualization tool. You can also, if I had some numeric columns in here, I could then go and chart this stuff as well. I don't have any numerics or particular types, so I can't create any columns because I'm missing int32, int64, single or double. So I'd have to cast my time differences to that and do it off ticks or something like that, which is doable. Again, that's a projection, so I'd have to do a projection that converted it. I just haven't bothered doing that at this point in time because it's enough to give you an idea. And also to say that we're pretty much close to time. So ask your questions. Yeah, sure, shoot. Can you build reports? Never. What type of reports?
Which basically customer keep most.
So what would you like to do? There is an API, by the way. There's a complete REST API, so I can actually run these queries from the API and get the results as well. So I could bring the data down from the REST API and feed that into whatever reporting engine you want to use.
If that feels a little bit scary, there's also the metrics explorer in the portal, like in the regular portal.
Yeah,
And you can tailor that and do some basic stuff. So you can look for just
That's-
sections.
that's this one here. So these things here, that's the metrics explorer. And you can do search and filter and things like that in there as well. You also, I should have mentioned, while this app's running, I've actually got, it's probably way off the side here, App Insights has an add-in for Visual Studio, so I can actually go and start looking at telemetry data there. And if I've got Code Lens enabled, then I will also see on operations Code Lens information like here, which says, there's App Insight stuff. I need to, it looks like I need to refresh my credentials, but I can see that information straight in Visual Studio as well, if I've got access to the portal. I've got to be able to sign into the portal to get this stuff.
And can you debug into that exception?
Can you debug into the exception that happened? No, not that I know of.
I have seen, I remember seeing some kind of live, I've seen
Yeah,
a
it's,
while ago, and I remember thinking that's awesome.
Um,
I haven't seen it since I was just running the business.
so you can, if you, when the historical debugger was first put out, you could actually go in and instrument your entire application to get all the trace information for historical debug, and then grab that, bring it down, all that sort of thing. The hassle there is that you've got to get all that information, and people generally don't run that in production because of the drag it puts on your machine. So it's,
But if you're having huge issues,
if you're having huge issues, probably I'd have to go and dig around to find out how to turn that on. I'm sure it's still, you can still do it. I don't know that you're going to do it through the portal, and debugging with the historical debugger is going to be different than doing it through App Insights.
Can you hook up with notification?
Can I hook up with notifications?
Like if you're on particular slow.
Yes. So there's a few options. In Insights, you can do smart detection, and you can play around with things in here to see some various things about what might be happening. So smart detection rules, slow page load time, for example, things like that. And then when they get triggered, the notification, I can't remember exactly how the notifications happen. Do you know, Mike?
So there's alerts that you can set up.
Yeah.
That bit, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
There's alerts you can get to email you, and I get them. If something particularly runs slow or something's not responding, then you get them.
It's on the rule. There you go. I should just click the next button. Email the owners, whoever, or add extra things. So yeah, feel free to spam the universe with that. Everyone loves good email spam. I'm going to go over here first. Yeah.
In terms of web forms or
Web forms. What's that?
web forms, I mean, like microservices running
Yeah.
across there.
Yep.
I mean, after app is deployed on several nodes. Is there any way to distinguish between each node?
As in the source of the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be in the. It's going to be in the instrumentation information. The machine that's come from is one of the properties that you'll get by default if you just use the SDK. You can always add your own custom data as well. So if you're not getting enough information, you want to track something else. I want to know which CPU I was running on.
So there's nothing about sourcing telemetry itself.
It's just telemetry. It's just data. So the SDK will use information from the machine to populate a lot of that stuff. So again, if I just jump in and see if I can show you a decent one.
The IP address, that's probably not that useful.
Yeah, not so much. Let's take I'll just hit this one. See what I've got. So some requests there. Let's get one of those requests and I'll get the trace off that. That one there. And that one there, followed by, come on phone, you can do it. Followed by a small pause. Feel free to make tea. All right. So you can see here, in terms of the information, I've got request properties, name, IP address, device type, whatever else. If I go all telemetry for this operation, some of the other ones will have other information. So I want to jump into an event here. Some of the fields aren't shown, like the operation ID that's used is not shown. Session information isn't shown in that view, but it's in the telemetry. So you can see here device type PC, dev mode, but not the actual machine name that's coming from there. That said, it does have, I'm pretty sure the machine name's in there anyway, because we had it in the live stream, right? So it's just whether it's surfaced on the UI or you have to query it. Actually, we could probably jump in here and add something in here, client IP, client something, I don't know. One of those. Source. And so you can see I'm just mucking around and playing with things, and no information because, yeah, my ago is too ago. I've been talking too long, damn it. Then let's go across, and the source is blank because I haven't specified it. There you go. All right, whatever. But you can play around with things, and again, if you need to, you just include a bit of extra. Question?
With the operation ID, I was wondering if you could show an example in code how you say this thing that's happening over here is a continuation of the operation that started over here.
As long as you use the same telemetry client within the app, that's fine. If it's coming across the other side, if you're going across a hop, you have to attach it to your request. So in your request to the other thing, let's say it's a HTTP request, you have to include that in it so that we know what context is coming across the wire. So when you're doing it from the JavaScript side going across, I'm not going to go in and dig through, but if I put on the network trace, you'd see some information in there that is then picked up by the back end to say, this is part of that operation. That's how we know between like the web front end and the back end what's going on.
Depending how complicated it is, it might just be like a block at a time. So,
yeah.
So you know that this thing happens.
But you can always include like the operation ID as one of the headers in the request, and then use that. And then in your telemetry object on the back end, you'd do something like telemetry.context.operation ID equals, and then you're fine from that point forward, and then it flows through.
How does it know when to start a new operation, or what is an operation?
That's up to you. As far as the default is concerned, it's a user interaction at the front end that's going to do something. So an interaction that causes a AJAX request across the wire or a page load or whatever else is an operation. So if you think of user interaction as the operation, you're generally okay. If you did a timed job and you were running like a batch process that triggered every X number, you might call that an operation, or you might call it a different session or something. It's up to you how you want to track this. So App Insights isn't going to be too dictatorial around that.
I wonder, is that, say, third-party application want to accept this data? Based on this data source, they will generate some useful report or whatever.
Yep.
Is there a way to do that?
So if you want to, so an admin wants to generate useful reports off this data.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So obviously you can do just what I was doing before with the analytics piece and run that and basically just turn it into a chart or something and go, here it is, here's my top 25 performing things or my worst queries or whatever else. You can also push the data into OMS, Operations Management Suite, as an extra feed. So you can take stuff from here, push it across to your ops team who might be using OMS to manage stuff, and they can get insight data in there as well. and then run reports out of OMS instead. It just depends on who your audience is more than anything else. So it's probably more a question of what do you want to show people? Where's the best point to get it? And for that, I don't know. It's going to depend on you. Any others? Otherwise, I do want to be aware of time and let you guys go before it gets too late. Last question? No, I've said you can go home, so everyone went, no more questions. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay, next.